Welcome back to another episode of Trading Secrets. Today, we are joined by one of Bachelor Nation's more recent and favorite couples to come off from the franchise, Charity Lawson and Dotun Olubeko. After being a contestant on Zach's season of The Bachelor, Charity was selected to be the lead for The Bachelorette season 20, where she eventually fell for Dotun, and the two became engaged to wrap up her season. Since wrapping up their time on the show, Charity added another notch to her reality TV belt, finishing 4th place in Dancing with the Stars season 32 this past fall. The two of them now live together in Brooklyn. We're here right now where they're starting a new life together. Ironically, both Charity and Dotun earned their bachelor's and master's degrees and eventually worked in the health and wellness fields prior to ever being on reality TV. Charity worked as a child and family therapist, while Dotun worked as an integrative medicine consultant and started his own fitness and coaching company, DPT Fitness. So while both being very well educated and fresh into their careers, we're going to talk how life has changed for them. Just 1 year. They have done all of this in 1 year removed from the show, and what is next for this happy couple in New York City. Charity, Dotun, thank you so much for being in this episode of Trading Secrets.
Thank you so much, Jason. We're excited to be here.
We're pumped to be here. All right. Now, we got a lot to talk about here.
Yes, we do.
Your resumes are deep. You've both done a ton as far as it relates to your career. Charity, I'm going to start with you. So, master's degree in clinical mental health counseling from Auburn, and then you worked in child and family therapy in Georgia and Alabama from 2019 to 2023.
Yeah.
The first thing I thought about was like someone with clinical mental health counseling studies going into the Bachelor in Reality franchise has a leg up on everyone.
I really do.
So given your professional experience and your studying and then being in reality TV and Dancing with the Stars and The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, like what's your overall synopsis when you think about the mental health aspect and all the studies you know and like how therapy actually helped you or being a therapist helped you through this?
I literally keep telling myself or just thinking about if I hadn't had my degree in that, I probably either would have shown a completely different side of like Charity, because obviously therapy also helped me as a person and develop who I am, but also everyone around me. Like on Zach's season, I hate to say that I kind of had the therapist role, but I did. Like I was the girl in the house that was helping everybody else kind of go through all these problems, and I'm like, I kind of viewed everyone like as a case study, and I try to turn my like lens off sometimes. I'm like, okay, you're not like in therapy role, like you're on a TV show. But I would have to say, like, I mean, it definitely like helps when you have understanding, because as we know it, like reality TV and like especially The Bachelor, like that environment is truly like psychological warfare. It's crazy. And like if you don't have any understanding of yourself, but also just how like personalities, dynamics work, like the things that you're going through, you're being tested from all types of measures, like you kind of have to have like a little bit of understanding. So I do want to say, like, I think it definitely helped to my advantage that I had those skills already. And then obviously as the Bachelorette, like it helped me kind of like, I had to turn it off again as Bachelorette, but it helped me like kind of like talk to the guys a lot better and like pull the layers back and apart from just like surface level. Okay, we're not like talking surface level thing. Let's like get into the nitty. Like the nitty gritty.
So much time.
And knowing like
deep.
which avenues to like kind of like or routes to take for each guy. It was complex, but it worked out.
Kind of wild. One thing you said that landed with me is you said like case study on each person. Now people that are listening to this are of course fans of the shows. They have their own perspective of people and how they either might have been triggered on the show or snapped or whatever it might be. When you look at like the case studies for each person on your show or just like the overall show, what do you think is like the biggest misconception that happens to these individuals when they're under this pressure cooker from like a diagnosis of someone who's like a professional?
That's a good question. I think from being the Bachelorette and like with the guys, I can definitely see like a lot of ego take over and a lot of guys crack under like obviously after a certain point the competition concept really does like take over for guys more so than I think girls. We're like obviously more emotional beings, but like when it comes to the guys, I saw so quickly how the egos got to it. I don't want to use names, but like if you watch my season, like you can kind of see like very like, you know, a few front runners kind of like use or that kind of take over for them. So I would have to say egos for sure with guys. With girls, It's a little more, it's complicated because I feel like Zach's season was really a special case because we all kind of developed a really good like friendship and bond, which is not normal. Like
No,
we don't really
that's not
ever
normal.
see that on the seasons. But I guess like at a certain point, like obviously we're just all like tired and emotional. So like I remember like when I was helping Greer out in London, like we were all just freaking out because we're wanting an opportunity and an opportunity day because we're sacrificing coming on the show, but we're not really knowing like how to like I guess I don't know like utilize our emotions to the best of our abilities because we're in these foreign like environments. We're under obviously the producers, like they have control over a lot of things. So it's really just like trusting yourself. And I think because a lot of us were young then, we aren't really mature in that. So there's things that we still have to like develop and grow into. So I had insight of that, but only being able to kind of utilize that for myself, not obviously able to like help everybody else out.
It's so true. Like the idea of the emotional overload and then having the ability to somehow self-regulate in a situation that's so irregular is like close to impossible. I felt that too. I don't know if you felt this, Don. Like when I got into them, you probably didn't feel it. I mean, you're a tall, beautiful man. I was like the shortest guy in that place. I'm from Buffalo. I'm a banker. I'm like, what am I doing here? But there's definitely like an imposter syndrome. And then I do feel like majority of the people, especially on The Bachelorette, because obviously that's my experience, that's yours. I felt like majority of those people back at home in their groups, like they're definitely the alpha, like they're the like I feel like most of those people are like the leader in their groups. Put them all into a mansion, start competing, start developing feelings, and then it's just like no one can self-regulate no matter how good you are, right? Did you feel that at all, like that type of pressure at all? Did you feel an imposter syndrome? Did you feel like it was tough to self-regulate in that mansion?
Yeah, I actually did. I actually had a conversation this weekend with one of the contestants now, who shall not be named, but we both talked about how interesting it is because you're right. These are probably the top dogs in their little circle. You know, and like John B, you know, he's from Minnesota, but he's probably like runs that town. And then you come into this environment, and for her season, they casted, I mean, you know, no offense to any past seasons, but they casted so well for her. You know, most of the guys were late 20, early 30s kind of thing, or were really established. And you just see all these tall dudes. And like, that's my advantage. You know, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm tall and I have all these things going for me. And I'm like educated, but everybody there was educated, you know? It's like so crazy to just jump into that world. But yeah, like that pressure cooker environment is going to make or break you. And I know for me, initially I was like, oh, this is weird. Like, this just feels like, you know, a dick measuring contest. Can I swear on here? Is that okay?
Oh yeah. Okay. It's literally perfectly
you know, like quite literally.
Sounds like I got the biggest piece here, so I'm gonna win.
Maybe, but it was it ended up being I know for me I had to make a decision. There was about 2 weeks in, and you're letting all this get to you. And then after our first conversation, I actually had a conversation with a producer off camera as well, that I said, what am I here for? Like, I'm here to find love and here to like for personal development. And once I took that step and stopped worrying about what other people look like or doing, that's when for me like our relationship blossomed. I was able to open up. It was such a good learning experience for me in that way. And like I said, all the guys actually ended up being really cool. We had very little drama. The drama that was there was like not crazy, you know. It was, push the gas. It was like the craziest thing. Punch the gas. Like, it was like the craziest thing. And even that, it's like everyone's so tight now. You know, when we got in our group chat, it was like 20 dudes, which I feel like usually it might be like 5 or 10, right? For you guys, but there was like most of us that made it past a certain point were in a group chat, and so we're still very tight to this day.
Yeah, that's impressive. I would say like it's even less than 5. Usually most seasons like 1 to 2. So the fact that you guys have it is a testament, and probably a testament to the guys that they got in your season. One last question I have when I dive into this mental health scenario from someone who's a therapist is a question I've always wondered, and with your professional background now, I have to know. What do you think it is when we go through the casting and then you have to do the 600 question psych test or whatever, the 3-6, which is just brutal. And then you end up meeting with the psychologist, right? And they ask you random questions. What is your what do you think that is? What are they trying to do there?
I honestly don't know. I think it's like, okay, are your answers consistent like in person? Because some people not answer it. I don't know. Some people lie and then you come in person and it's not the same. It's not like correlating together. So that was my first thought. But then again, I'm like, I don't know, because I know a lot of even though we end up making it on the show, there's a lot of people that probably don't pass like psych. Like
definitely don't.
Look at that house. Like there's like 2 people in there that probably pass psych. And so for me, it's like I'm trying to figure out which questions are people not like, I guess not what makes them fail on it. I don't know. Like it's really hard, and it's always been like I always say, like, after leaving the show, I want to write like a whole like thesis on this show and like everything, like seriously on the psychological like aspects of it all.
Totally.
Because it's insane. Like I actually don't get it, but when it comes to psych, the fact that they let people through, and I know that people aren't passing it, but then when you meet with the psychologist, they ask you like 3 questions, and it's like the 3 most random ones. Yeah. And it's like, okay, we're done. And it's like, are we sure? Like I was like, oh, that was quick. And he was like, yeah, like you did great. And I was like, okay. And like, I know, like for me, like I'm not saying like I'm like eliminated from having any like mental health problems, but like I know like there's things that I was like concerned about for myself, and I'm like, they're not even like flagging that or really going into depth about that. So like, why is that the case?
It's
and you just never
why.
have.
It's the why.
So it's a why for me, unless you have an answer.
I just thought it was just they don't want to let a murderer in. You know, like
see, they do. I mean, let's give the show props. They do crazy background checks. They obviously need to be better. Like everyone needs to be better, right? Like there's always stuff that comes up, but I do feel like they put a lot of work into it. And I think like criminal background stuff, they're gonna find that. My theory is, this is my theory, because I used to work in strategy at a bank, and they would give these personality tests, and there's all different types. But they would give them to all the bankers to test their like emotional IQ and just like other areas. And what I was always taught by the people that give those tests, and for anyone listening right now, if like you're about to go work for a company or you're going through the hiring process, they give these tests a lot. My understanding is they will do a ton of questions because they're looking for you to be inconsistent with your answers. So they'll ask the same question 100 different ways, and if on question 1 or question 454 it's actually the same question worded differently, if you're still consistent, you're gonna like crush that test. Correct. But then my theory was they do it so they can know certain personality types. So when they cast for the show, they have all different personality types so they can make a good TV show. So if you do any more analysis on this, I want you to come back. We're going to do a whole behavioral study.
Like literally.
That's my take on it. But let me ask you this. You know, obviously we talk careers and money here. You worked as a child and family therapist. A little bit about what that work life is like how many hours are you working?
Insane.
Like where can pay start? Where can it end? Is there incentives if you go on your own? Just give us a synopsis for anyone that might even think of that career track.
So obviously my master's was in clinical mental health counseling. So right after that, which was like a very brief time between like when I graduated grad school up until starting like bachelor and even bachelorette, I started working like right away. And I will have to say my specialization was in trauma. So you're working extreme hours. It is literally anywhere from like 35 hours a week to up to like honestly like 55 hours a week. Like your caseload is insane, just because of how much like intakes and clients that you're getting. For me, like I will be honest, I got extremely burnt out quickly, which is like crazy to say, even being my first year, like my second year into like that career, which was really eye-opening for me. And I was like, okay, like I have to like take a beat here, take a break to see like, obviously I'm really passionate about this field, but like the fact that I'm getting so burnt out so quickly because of the amount of hours and how much I'm like being exposed to was a lot. Pay, I will say, like therapists, if anyone's in this field, you do know, like if you're not working in private practice or at a really good private practice, you're not truly getting paid what we deserve to be paid. So you're looking anywhere from like a starting salary after grad school is like $50,000, and then if you're in private practice, like that can go into like $100,000 plus. So like it all depends on your caseload, client, and then obviously private, or if you're in like, if you're working in a hospital, you're not getting paid, like a mental health like institute, like you're not getting paid really what you need to.
So if you're working for like a larger healthcare organization or like a hospital or something like that, it's likely your pay is going to be significantly lower than if you go out on your own and do it private practice.
Which is really hard to do that, like starting off like entry level or just like right after you're finished, because you have to get like your hours. It's like a whole process. It's so much. It's not just easy of like, okay, I graduated and then like I'm off on my own. Like you're looking at years into building a private practice.
Plus you're taking on, like you said, you're taking on a lot of people's stress and traumas. And I have to assume Is it fair? Is this a fair synopsis?
Yeah.
That you shouldn't go into this unless you are just so truly passionate about the work or impact.
1,000%.
I'm just thinking even the level of degrees you got, student debt at $50K, that's going to take a long time to pay masters back.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah.
That's
1,000%.
interesting. Then I got to ask you this, and then I'm coming over to you, Mr. Integrative Medicine Consultant. We're going to break it down. You see, I'm not going to name any names, but you see a lot of people that have been on the show that are connected to The Bachelor, some of which have been therapists, some of them tried to be therapists. What's your overall take on people from either the Bachelor franchise and or the use of social media with people providing all this
therapy talk?
Therapy talk, but don't maybe have like the background or medicine. Like, what's your take when you see it?
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's infuriating. I'm not gonna say I don't get it. I get it, but then again, like, for someone who obviously, like, I went to school for it, but then also, like, I've dealt with, like, the worst of the worst, and I've seen things. I have a big problem with just, like, how much social media has transformed, like, therapy and therapy talk, like, how much I think it is, like, creating a bigger problem when it comes to, like, mental health, because it's, like, easy accessible for people, and that's the thing I like about it, is like, oh, you can get on it, but it can also be misleading and misguiding for a lot of people, especially people who are like suffering or dealing with things. So yeah, like, obviously if you don't, if you're not clinically trained, I would advise maybe not.
Okay, but
probably not.
So trading secret to the listeners, because they're consuming it. So if they're consuming it from someone, you would tell them, be aware or look for this or don't do this. What would the advice
look
be?
for someone who probably has training, clinical training. I'll say be wary of like people who are also just like consider themselves like coaches. Like, I feel like even then that can also be problematic at times, depending on where they got their training or where they're getting their knowledge from. Look at their credentials. Like, credentials, obviously, people who work hard for them, we work hard for them for a reason. They're there to help us. And so look for those type of people. Be careful of like digesting too much on social media when it comes to like therapy talk again. Like, just,
Keep your guard up. Just be aware. And one thing I think is, when people share their experiences and they're talking in I, and like, I went through this, I'm learning this, I'm going through it, I feel this, I tend to be more attracted and listening than if someone's telling me like, you should be doing it. Like, you need to be doing it. Like, no. You want to share your experience.
Exactly.
I'm here
Experience
for it.
is
like,
the best teacher. And I will say, and you don't have to be qualified to talk about your experience like that. You've actually lived it. And I will say that's great too. But a lot of the people who are doing that don't live it. So there we go.
Last question on this career stop for you before I go to you, Dotun. Did you, when you finished the show at any capacity, did you go back into work, clinical work?
No.
Okay.
So like, I'll save it for if you circle back. I do at some point want to, but
We'll circle back, but you haven't been in it since Touching Reality TV. Got it. Dotun, integrative medicine consultant. This is why I love this show. I see things like this. I'm like, what the hell is that? Tell me. But and obviously, I mean, you got a bachelor's degree in nutrition science from California State University, 2-time collegiate All-American, master's degree in functional medicine and human nutrition from University of Western States in 2022. I mean, obviously, there's a whole lot of depth here, especially within this field, but I've never even heard integrative medicine consultant. What is that? What does that mean? Tell me about the job.
Yeah, I mean, to this day, like, it's weird. It's like breaks my heart that a lot of people don't know about it, but it's true, they don't. And I remember I honestly heard about it when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do after I was about to graduate my undergrad, and I'd heard of functional medicine. I was like, what the hell is that? And you find out it's just root cause medicine, right? And so it's really in-depth, personalized, one-on-one medicine, and it's using conventional, so Western medicine, so medications, but we try to lean on the holistic because that's how you're going to get to the root of the issue.
Oh, cool.
So me personally, I work with not so much in the clinical department, so like, I'm not looking for that 500-pound guy who like needs to like lose weight. I work with more like high earners, athletes, and people like you, honestly, to try to get them to the place they want to be, right? And so I basically will map out the things that they do from when they wake up, when they go to bed, tell them why, provide education. So yeah, it's I call it medicine, right? It's just we live in a time now where the conventional medicine, it was effective, but there's too many variables these days. There's too many different ways that health can go wrong, all this stuff in our food. And so providing education is a big thing of what we do here, but also getting people to do the things that they need to do, because, medications are just Band-Aids. So we work with nutrition, diet, fitness, sleep, hygiene, stress, and, trying to give people every tool they need and understand why they're doing everything and why it's led them to there and how they can get out of these, conditions or goals that they want to meet.
Okay, top 3 mistakes people make when it comes to nutrition. What would you say?
Oof. Overcomplicate it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm talking about health science is so complicated. It's so deep, right? You can go forever on it. And my job is to parse out the really specific things that someone might need to do. Okay. But the truth is, it's simple. It's just hard, right? Yeah. So I think we're always looking for that next big thing. Yeah. But when it comes to like diet is the big one, right? People just to get more specific, I think one thing a mistake people make is not intermittent fasting. It's one of the most impactful things.
So you're pro intermittent fasting.
Yeah,
because I see everything on intermittent fasting. Yeah, it's great for you. It's terrible for you. It's great for you. It's terrible for your liver. It's terrible for your sugar spikes. Exactly. So your take is that everyone should intermittent fast.
It's not it's just the studies, right? Yeah, it's like the research, and when you understand human nutrition, how the body works, you can see clearly why it's so effective. As human beings, we weren't meant to be eating for 17 or 18 hours of the day. There's specific processes that go on in our body once we stop eating, because if you think about it from an ethological perspective, which is just like evolutionary perspective, we went just days, sometimes weeks without food, and our body upregulates all these processes that create healing and healing states. And so when you're constantly eating, you're constantly digesting, it's really taxing. People don't know that digestion is it's a big tax on the body. And so when you stop doing that, a lot of things, fix themselves. So I would say that's one for sure. Number 2 is wasting time in the gym. I think that's a big one. A lot of people are not being effective on their phone, taking breaks. And it's like, I can be as effective in 30 minutes as they can be in 2 hours, right? And then the people say, I don't have time. And it's like, you're just doing it wrong. So there's so many little things, working out legs is a big one too. A lot of people neglect legs.
Legs just doing the curls.
Yeah, exactly. Which I get it, I really do. But you'll actually see bigger gains in every way if you work out these bigger muscles. Take less rest breaks. Maximize your time. So that's a second one.
Okay.
Then third one, I would say, God, it's so up in the air.
Like hydration or protein.
There we go. I love that.
I was like, you said it.
Protein.
I feel like I don't get enough. No. That's big, right?
Huge, right? Like, to break it down, as you can tell, I'm like a nerd about this stuff, but like, it's like fat and carbs, our bodies can store those things, right? And as much as they do other things besides calories, it's very minimal. Their main thing is to provide you energy. Protein does everything else, right? So if you want to lose weight, guess what? You have to create enzymes that are gonna help you lose the weight to fuel those processes. Those are from protein. If you want to gain weight, you're gonna need those enzymes. So protein, most people are severely under eating it, and it's like, for the last few decades, the public consensus from at least like the conventional medicines, like, people are eating too much protein. It's just not the case.
Is there a rule though? Is there like, okay, if you weigh a certain amount, you should be eating this amount of grams?
Yeah. So going back into like carbs versus protein versus fat, protein is critical in terms of like, it's the one thing that stays consistent based on your weight, right? Like, carbs and fats are things you titrate based off of your energy, how much you're using per day. Okay. But if you weigh 400 pounds, you should have a certain level of protein, and even if you're losing weight, you don't bring that protein down. And
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So generally the rule would be, I would say 0.7 on the low end to 1 gram per pound of body weight is an excellent place. So the higher, you want to get on the higher end if you're more active, you're working out a lot more. Lower end, maybe if you're not as active and you're more sedentary.
So one gram of protein per pound that you weigh, then you could fluctuate it based on if you're trying to gain weight or trying to reduce
exactly
but keep it within a certain
when I tell
threshold.
people when they want to like build out what their macros, the protein is the first thing you calculate. That's based on your weight. So for me, let's just use 200 pounds, 200 grams, right? It's pretty hard to get, but
That's at least that is like, what?
I know, I'm
doing my way now. How am I getting that much?
No, it's a lot. But when you think about how much carbs and fats you're eating, you just have to replace them. And you work up to it, and your appetite will catch up as well. So usually measure that out, 200 grams of protein, and then I use carbs, and carbs based on how much if I'm working out that day, I'm gonna have a little bit more. If I'm not, and then fill in the rest with healthy fats.
Okay.
That's pretty much.
Tell me about that. This stuff is fascinating. Get your protein, work out in 30 minutes, not dicking around for 2 hours.
Correct.
And your first one is intermittent fast. So those are 3 good ones. The nutrition field, the industry, typically, what are people making around?
That it's so broad. I mean, there's the very the lowest rung to be able to work is a coach, and then obviously there's medical nutrition interventionist. So it's really, the thing is, it's not a naturally lucrative thing. You kind of want to have your own business, right?
Okay.
Right
Similar
now,
to therapy then.
Yeah,
If you work into an institution, you're getting paid a lot. Hey, if you work into an institution, suppose you're a nutritionist for a hospital. Give me a guess. What do you think around they're making?
Maybe 60.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
60.
But if you go on your own, you can then, similar to a therapist,
more.
you control everything.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. You have to get creative. You do, and that's one thing that I had to learn. That's why I created my own business, because I just saw the writing on the wall, and it's I was passionate about it, but how do I make sure I can eat off of it? And so you got to get lucrative, but now the field is exploding, right?
Okay,
more
huge.
people are knowing about functional and integrative medicine, and so now there's definitely more opportunities. I also work for a startup company, and I get paid pretty well. I'm really happy with what I get paid, and it's because people are putting more resources and understanding the impact that this field can have.
Okay, so Cherry, I'm going back to you in a second. You haven't gotten back into therapy work. You want to at some point. We'll talk about it. Right now, though, DPT Fitness, you said you were working for a small startup too?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
and do you still own DPT Fitness?
I do.
Okay.
Ever since, really the show, it's much less. I've had to taper down significantly my private clients. So now it's just a few that I work with.
Okay.
But generally at the peak, that was my main source.
And
of
is your
income.
full-time job working for the startup?
Yeah.
Okay, and what's the startup?
Life Force.
Life Force.
Yeah,
Okay, and
Life Force.
what do you guys do? What's the startup?
So it's just a proactive healthcare company.
Cool.
So shout out to them, love them. They have been with me through all the Bachelor.
So have you been just working on the road, just remote?
Literally
From the tour to stars?
Yeah.
You're
All of
working
it,
in
all
the
of it,
star
all of it.
trucks in LA.
The only reason why he was able to come to LA.
Wow. How many hours a week are you working? Are you full time?
Yeah, it's full
Wow.
full-time.
Wow,
Yeah, it's full-time.
that's a lot to manage. I'm impressed by that, and good for your company for letting you get through it. Okay, so Cherry, you didn't go back into it. You become the Bachelorette right away.
Yeah.
Now, when you become the Bachelorette, I have to take a trip down memory lane. I think Gabby was in the mix. Ariel, I believe, was in the mix.
Ariel.
Ariel.
I know they interviewed, I think, even Brooklyn, Kat. It was a bunch
There
of
was
us.
I remember
So I
because
was
everyone was, but your name was in the mix, but
It was.
everyone's
So
name was
exactly.
in the mix.
So in my head, I'm like, I'm just going with the flow. I'm like, it's not I literally was like, it's not going to be me. I was truly getting my life ready to
go back to work.
Back
and you
to
were
work.
going back to work.
Yes, I was
you were
going
gonna be
to
a family
in
therapist.
Charlotte.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so how you stopped filming Zach's season when?
We stopped filming. Well, so I came home right final 4. So mine was the second week before they stopped filming. So in November, towards the middle end of November.
Okay, how long, and then you start filming The Bachelorette in March. When do you find out in that time frame that you're going to be the Bachelorette?
I got my interview I had my interview in January, and then they told me at Women Tell All. So that was the second week. Second week in March.
Yeah.
And then I had 2 weeks to go home and pack and get the necessities and then fly
just
back
get
out.
going.
Yeah.
Did you have an inclination, did you have in January, you finished the interview?
Yeah.
I come to you, I say, Charity, give me Vegas odds. Be real with me. What's the percentage you're going to be the Bachelorette? What do you think it was?
I would say probably 60.
Okay, so you felt pretty confident.
Yeah, it was
about it.
it was up there, but then again, I was as we know the history of The Bachelor in the show, I was
they'll come and all,
but I may not.
Okay. After my interview, I thought it was about 6%. So I'm glad that you were teed up. Now, from November to March, that 4-month period, you then just go film. Are you still incurring expenses? Are you working? Do you have rent anywhere? What's the money situation
So
at Charity?
there was it was actually pretty fortunate that I was living on my own in between the seasons, but I was preparing my move to Charlotte. So my brother lived in Charlotte. So I had I was kind of in the process of him staying with him until I signed my lease on my place and everything. But thank God I didn't, because I was literally pen and paper. And then that's when I figured out obviously I was
gonna go on the show.
Yeah, going to be Bachelorette. So I didn't have a lot of expenses, luckily, besides just taking care of myself. I did have a car at the time, so that was like hard. Like a car note, a new car.
Yeah.
All that.
What kind of car was it?
It was a Nissan Rogue. Like the SUV. So
okay,
yeah, like 2022 or 3, whatever.
So you're paying for the car.
Yeah, paying for the car myself. So I didn't have like rent, so that was like nice.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think any other like major expenses that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
So I was like
it.
pretty kind of like.
And then you go into
easy.
film. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You go into film, and you didn't have a job that you had to report to.
Yeah.
And now you're locked in, and you are.
Well, the crazy part is I actually did have a job, so I didn't tell them like I was getting ready to have like my first start day.
So you worked in between November and March. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
As a therapist?
But then and then I was relocating to Charlotte, so like the office in Charlotte, and I was telling them I was like, I'm kind of like I just got off the show, and then basically saying like I don't really know what's next, but I was like I can't put my life on hold. So I was like ready to move forward with my life, not like wait for the show. And I remember like talking to them, and then they're like, okay, like we think we know what you're talking. Like obviously like NDA, like I couldn't say, like I'm gonna be the next Bachelorette.
Yeah, of course.
So,
but they knew you were just on the season.
Exactly, yeah. So they kind of like they obviously knew. And then like right before I flew out for Women Tell All, like my manager, she was like, let me know, like keep me updated. And then I think she like found out before like I got to be able to tell her back. And she was like, well, she said, we'll be here if you need us. So it was basically like open arms, but yeah.
You haven't needed them since. But when you left for Zach's season,
yeah.
did you take vacation time? Did you get paid? Did they
it was not paid. So
okay, so it was non-paid time off, but they let you come back.
Yeah.
You worked for like 2 months?
Yeah, basically.
2 months?
Yeah.
And then you get hired for the new gig.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you left to film The Bachelorette, were you working for an institution or yourself at this point?
I was doing both.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did they allow you to go on the show? Did you have to leave your job? What did they say?
Yeah, that's part of a funny story. And like, what was, because, okay, obviously I was casted 2 weeks before filming started. So I had 2 weeks to talk about the questionnaire, all that stuff. And I also had 2 weeks to tell my job. And it's like, obviously jobs aren't going to play that. And so I remember getting that text about, hey, you might go on, we start filming in 2 weeks. And I'm like, initially I'm like, hell no, I'm not doing this. I'm not a reality TV guy. And then I'm also thinking about my job most importantly.
Of course, yeah.
And I, to speak to my manager, like, and obviously I don't want to bring it up because I don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
You don't want to be like, hey, I might do this and leave
until
y'all.
You know.
Until I know.
I know. I felt
and then luckily I'm really cool with, again, everyone I work with is amazing. Management's awesome. And then I think it was like maybe a week before where I was in the middle of the process, and I was like, just my one manager I trusted, and I was like, hey, don't tell anybody. But Megan, shout out to Megan. I was like, listen, I got approached to do this thing, and I don't know if I am. And then her response was like, listen, you're pretty much telling us to go fuck ourselves. Like, you can kick rocks. Like, yeah.
No way.
Yeah,
I did. The way you just told the story, I thought she was going to be like, go chase
No,
it
gets better. It gets better. So that was the first, so I was like, so that made the decision so much harder.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, again,
it's work or show.
For me. Yeah. And it's like, I have a great tenure there. Like, I was one of the first 10 employees. So I have a really good standing there. I didn't want to give that up. And then when I decided to do it, and I told her, 36 hours before our flight, she was like, I talked with everybody and we love you. We need you. So you're good. Go out there and come back when we'll be here.
Now, this isn't a company that you're still with, correct?
Yeah, this is them.
This is the same. You're still with them. Same.
Fortunate.
Wow, that is amazing. So they helped. Wow, they came full circle.
Yeah, I was like, I remember being like, I get like it's messed up, but holy shit.
All right, I love it.
Be some type of.
So you go on The Bachelorette. You are now The Bachelorette. A question I always like, especially with the book. We partied our ass off at the Talk Money to Me book party. That was a blast. But with the book Talk Money to Me, I'm always curious. Fantasy suites. You're thinking about, well, I'm not going there. Not this show. But like, obviously at this point, like you have a pretty good idea this might be your fiance and vice versa. And you only have so much time with cameras off.
Right.
At any point, morning, day, night, anything, are you talking at all about your jobs, your money situation? Are you having these conversations?
I think we talked about jobs, but we definitely, like, I didn't ask, like, oh, what's your salary? Like, are you in, like, debt? Like, I did not go there. I think I was just more like, I don't know, probably more scared about other things, but finances shouldn't be like up there.
Yeah.
But like we just
sure.
we didn't cross that bridge.
Yeah,
Did you think about crossing the bridge?
Of course.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
you just did. Yeah.
Of course. Like even watching my parents, watch them, everything they've been through.
Yeah.
I've told this to her since, and I'm like, I've always been aware like how much finances plays a big role in divorces, right?
Yeah,
Like, it's huge. It's way more than you would think. You want to be like, love is love.
Yeah.
But it does play a big role. So I do remember thinking about it, but like I knew that I was in an okay position, and I kind of knew enough about her. Like obviously she has a master's, so I'm like, she not like she can't be worth shit, There's gotta be something.
I mean, she's ABC's the
yeah, right. I mean, I'm sure she's getting paid, so like I know I'm okay. So I feel like I had more insight maybe than she would, because I think for her, she has less information about me. And so, but I'm kind of glad that we didn't, at least initially, like that time is so important.
It's so important.
And wanting to make sure that like, again, I feel like it's one of those things we'll cross that bridge.
Yeah.
You do have to be responsible to cross it, right?
Yeah.
And not just say it. But yeah, we didn't talk too much about it. I think she knew like the field I was in. I knew the field she was in.
Okay.
And we knew that was a good mesh. And then
we talked a lot about schooling too. So I was like, schooling.
So
I was like, okay, masters.
There's something. So then you get engaged. Congratulations. That was over a year ago. Happy 1 year. And like so then what is the career? Obviously, you guys, we already spoiled it with the intro. You live in Brooklyn. But what does the conversation look like after the show when you talk about, like, do you start talking about the money stuff? Do you talk about the career stuff? You're going 100 miles an hour, so do you possibly think you might have to put your career on hold? Like, what did those conversations look like?
Yeah, I think Dotun actually brought it up initially. Like, it was towards, I want to say, like, during Dancing with the Stars. Yeah. Brought up, like, the whole financial conversation, but then also, like, I think that I got bombarded with that question of like, what's next for you? What's next? And it's like, I have people in my ears saying like, you don't need to go back to your job. And then I have people saying like, yeah, you do. And it's like, for me, like I was very open with Dotun about it. I was like, obviously like I went to school for it, but like, I don't think I worked enough for me to ever really say like, it's a career of mine. Like I had like maybe like 2 years under my belt. So it's like, I wanted to go back. I just didn't know what that was going to look like. Obviously, coming off of reality TV and then like where we're going to end up at, like what licensure is going to look like for the state that I'm in. So I was like, okay, I'm going to give myself like time to really think about it, which is what I'm like utilizing this time for. But like I do plan to go back like towards August, like that time frame. As a therapist and still working with kids and families. So
wait. Whoa.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Because I'm thinking, okay, you finished filming in April. It then aired in June of 2023.
Yeah.
Then, it finishes in August 2023. So when you're referring to August, I thought you were talking about your thought process.
This August 2024.
So you're going to go back to
like I really do want to. I just feel like it's like a part of like my purpose and like I've been fulfilled a lot from all of this and it's been exciting, but also it's like that one thing of like, okay, like I feel like I like need to give back and it's like something that I really was like driven by, and not having that in my life kind of has like this or leaves this little absent mark in my life. And me and Dotun talked about it, and I think it's like it would be really helpful for me just like to have something to like guide myself towards, because obviously like I mean, as much as everyone wants to like probably stay, I don't personally want to stay in reality TV like forever. You kind of have to have something, and right now like obviously there's like for you to go into anything like open a podcast, all these other things, it's like, yeah, like that's great, that could come, other things could come, but right now I'm like, that's like the one thing I know like without a doubt, like okay, I did it before, I'm passionate about it, like let's go back into it.
Are you gonna go full-time or are you gonna go part-time?
That's the thing I'm like still trying to decide. It depends honestly what that would look like. Obviously it's hard to do well, it's not hard, but I think like once you are like a fully experienced license, it's easier to do part-time. You have more control and flexibility over your hours and your caseload. But like with me still like trying to get more experience under my belt, I'd probably need to start off full-time. And then if it's too much, I think obviously the practice that I would be working with would be able to like work with me on that. But right now, the goal is to do full-time, but hopefully not like a full caseload to where it's like I was like where I was before. It was insane. So
have you been, and I have a bunch of questions for you, but have you been approached since, so you go on Bachelorette, Dance with the Stars, then Dance with the Stars tour, this all just wraps, so now you have a minute to like breathe. Have you been approached at all to go on other reality shows?
I have.
You have? Okay. And have you considered those or no?
I thought about it, but then the timing of like I won't say the name, but like it was really close in proximity of when they asked me. Excuse me. And so I was like, I don't think I need to do it right now.
Close in proximity to what?
Like when they asked me, can you do this show? It was like leaving for filming in like the next few weeks. And I was like, you just asked me, and I was like not prepared for it. But then there is another show that I've been approached by that I actually would consider and would do.
Is it a challenge show?
No, it's.
Is it a dating show?
No, it's a dating show. I'm kidding.
I needed a reaction. That was a slow reaction. Get that bag. Get that money. What you gotta do?
No, it's like I don't even know how to describe it, but without giving it away. But we actually had someone do it. That's part of Bachelor Nation. Yeah. So,
is it under the Disney umbrella?
I don't think. I think it's
How long do they air for?
Actually, I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that.
Interesting. All right, last question.
But you probably
know.
Show.
You passed on this show?
Say it again.
You passed on whatever show this is.
The one that initially was asked. Yeah.
Let me ask you about this. Can you tell me how much you were offered to be on that show? We don't even know what the show is.
Yeah.
So you're not even ruining any contracts.
Yeah, it was $20,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
So okay.
But you have now I'm giving away too much.
Okay.
Sorry.
You have a chance to win more. That's my guess. Okay. $20,000. I don't have to say another word. You don't have to say another word. You pass on it because of the timing.
Yeah.
Got a question for both of you, and let's start with you, Charity. I think especially it alludes to going back to work full time in August. I might have to edit this part out. I'll ask him first. But with our agency, I talk to a lot of people that come from the show. And the cool thing about our agency is obviously there's a lot of deals and like the money aspect. I let the team do all the deals. I really like the coaching, the talent side. So I was sitting with Joey, we were talking for a while, and he was really struggling with identity. And I think a lot of people that come off the show struggle with it. And I was like, dude, let's just take a step back. Like in the last 12 months, America loves you. You've made more money than you've ever made.
Exactly.
You have a beautiful fiance that you're super in love with. You're getting to do all these things. Tell me about that. He's like, I just don't know what my purpose is. And then when people tell you, what job do you have? You just travel for a living? It starts to hit harder. There's like a little therapy in that. Have you at all struggled with identity
100%.
with like your professional life? And is that part of your reason for going back?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was actually something that like got brought up, and this is like full transparency. Hopefully you're okay with me sharing.
We could edit it out.
Yeah, got brought up in like an individual like counseling session for me, and I realized like a lot of the like behaviors that I was like exhibiting in other areas of my life was stemming from that. It was because I was like, oh, like I don't really know what's next for me, and like I hate like the question of like, oh, where do you see yourself like 5 years from now? Like I don't know. Like I genuinely don't know. And it produced a lot of anxiety for me. And so I think just having something that I know I can like look forward to, something that I know that I'm capable of doing. I don't have to like answer to anybody else. Like it's my career. I have full control over that.
Structured
too. Exactly. I need structure in my life. And so kind of coming to terms with that, and then obviously opening up to like Dotun about it, and like seeing how these things were playing out like in areas of our life. I was like, like this is something that we kind of like have to just like sit down and talk about, and I have to like come to a full decision of like what's next for Charity. Like what do I need to do? So like I relate 1000% to the struggling with the identity, struggling with like, okay, you were this big role and this is what America knows you as, because like granted they know what you did before, but like we don't get a full insight into like our work life before we become the Bachelor, Bachelorette. So I think it's
super mature, it's super thoughtful and intentional. The challenge though I find with a lot of people, the ones that you're definitely in this category, having a lot of success, there's so much you don't know, but what you do know is when they do come knocking on your door, it's a lot of money.
It is.
It's good opportunities. And especially if you compare it to previous worlds that you lived in, it's like hard to pass up.
It is.
But I do think the idea of like taking control to be like, this is what I'm gonna do, this is how I'm gonna do it, is amazing. I'm gonna come to you on the identity thing real quick. Before I do, is anything connected to going back to your job tied to consistent cash flow and money, or is it more identity, purpose,
it's
impact?
definitely not cash flow.
Like
no shade to but I mean that's just anybody. Like that's what I'm saying. I'm really grateful for the opportunities that have come my way, because I can sit here and say without a doubt, like I'm like able to pay off things. I'm able to like just live in like financial freedom of like not having to worry about like, oh, like where's the next flow of income coming from? Like I can say like this world has brought so much to me, so I definitely can say I'm grateful for that. But like when you think about it, it's like, oh my goodness, I'm getting this much from like a brand deal versus like I'm also working my ass off beforehand, and I was not even getting paid a fraction of that. It's like really wild to like sit and like look at. So that's why I'm saying I am extremely grateful, and I will never say I'm not. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely not for the money. It's more so like purpose and just things that I'm passionate about.
Yeah, it's so interesting how those type of things impact us personally, but have a huge tie to the profession. And then once the professional area of your life is like fully secure, it changes everything. It changes relationships, changes everything.
Absolutely.
Don, I want to go to you. Obviously, there's a lot of moving parts with this space, especially when you think about the professional world and the personal impact, especially being someone who was on The Bachelorette, you're with a lead, and now she's going on Dancing with the Stars. You've talked about it on your Instagrams, you've talked about it on Q&A, you've talked about it in media interviews, how unbelievable and patient and supportive you have been through this crazy journey. You've kept your job, Mike, unlike literally 95% of people, and no shame to those who haven't, this has just been your direction. You've kept your job and working while Charity's going through all this. Did you have any loss of like identity or struggle with the personal professional mayhem that kind of ensues after this year? And being with someone who's like the lead and all these things are happening and you're checking in at 8 a.m. to clock into the small business work, like what did that feel like to you, and did you struggle with any of it, and if so, what did it look like?
It's a good question. Very insightful, I can tell. No, seriously. And it's another thing. Yeah, it's been the topic that we've discussed. I think there's two parts for me to answer this, and like the first one is, like she said, like it's to this day, it's still really difficult, right? To like try to fit in all the things and still work and still contribute. Yeah. But like she said, for me, I'm such a purpose-driven person. I mean, that's why we're on the show. That's why I fell in love with it. Like everything was, I have to have a purpose. And you know, I'm Nigerian, dude. Like I wasn't born here. I came here when I was 4. And so it's like that stuff is ingrained in me to like not just be like, oh, try to, you know, not that it's a shortcut, but you know, in a sense you could call it that. So yeah, that's definitely been something that I always think about, and even nowadays I'm like doing my best to try to integrate both those worlds, which is difficult. Yeah. And I think that's the key kind of to the answer for the Joeys, who I've also discussed with in Charity, is like trying to find how to mesh these two worlds together, right? But I think on the identity part, and I think this is relevant to your question, but it's being in this position as the one who ends up with the lead can be very difficult. Yeah. You have to be very confident, first of all, in yourself, right? And, you know, do you mind if I kind of talk about, like, just the way that, like, you know, the opportunities that we get and what it's like being, like, right? Yeah, like,
it's real.
Yeah, it's real stuff, man. And it's like, you know, I think so much of, like, you know, we're obviously together, but so much of, you know, Charity success or any lead success generally is, a lot of it's based on the relationship, right? And the success of the relationship. And so it is odd, and I'm still to this day trying to find my groove in how I fit in with all this, because sometimes you feel like you're just showing up and you're just like, hey, like, what am I doing? You know what I'm saying? I wasn't the lead per se. And so that's, been very, very, I wouldn't say very difficult. Like, I've been able to manage it. Thankfully, we talk about it all the time, and she's open, and she's the most understanding person in the world. But I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. Do you get what I'm trying to say? That,
yeah. Well, you know, of course, in my situation with I understand, like, where you're in majority of situations that connect to like either media or entertainment, you'll question like, wait, why? Maybe I shouldn't be here. Like, where do I stand? How does this go? Should I just sit on the sidelines and clap? Like, I don't know. So there is a lot of, and then the also thing is like, it does tie into your professional world. So like, there's the personal aspect of trying to find the identity to be a supportive partner. Then there's the professional aspect to be like, wait, like, should I be part of this? Should I not be part of this? Like the whole, should I step into it? Should I step away from it? What do I actually want to do? And that becomes just very challenging, I think, and there's a lot of moving parts. And I think, I mean, I could say this with confidence, people that came from the Bachelor franchise, I really don't think I've ever talked to one person who ended up with the lead or was dating a lead that didn't feel something of this nature. The other interesting thing is I find, and I've said it to people higher ups at ABC, when you're in the Bachelor Nation franchise under the eyes of ABC, there's a hierarchy of everything, of how you're it doesn't matter what you've accomplished personally. It doesn't matter things happening outside the show that could be in whole different areas. It's like, if you're the lead, forever you're treated a certain way. And if you're a castmate, forever you're treated a certain way. And I've even provided feedback. I'm like, even the way sometimes you talk to us, it's like you're talking to two different people.
Right.
It's like you're addressing one person as a CEO and you're addressing one person as an assistant. And like, I don't think that should be the case anywhere.
Right.
But if you're intuitive, if you're insightful, you see this stuff.
Yeah.
You feel this stuff. Even if it's like, even sometimes it's not even nonverbal, it's there. So it is a constant battle. Probably one thing though, what's interesting is I've always gravitated, I've always enjoyed it. So I've enjoyed this area, the media, the entertainment. That's why I started the business. So I like podcasting. I was going to ask you, do you even, like the professional side of it, do you enjoy it? Like, do you want to be in this space of like the limelight and media or entertainment? Or are you like, just get me the fuck away from it? Because my identity was like, the weird thing is I still really like this and I still want to do it, but I want to do it my way.
I think there's levels like.
Yeah, there's levels. I mean, I think it appeals to me in a sense that I like new experiences. Right?
Yeah, that's cool.
So is being on the camera and taking pictures and smiling, like, is that really me? No, like, you know, any picture on my Instagram is because she asked.
Have the cool teeth.
Like, otherwise, like, I barely post on Instagram. Like, I'm the worst, and I should, right? Like, those are things that might be beneficial, but it's just not me per se. But one thing that is me is I love new experiences, and couldn't be as much as I'm talking about all these like things that are difficult to deal with. I wouldn't change anything because it's been so cool to see and experience all these things that you really only get once in a lifetime. So at the end of the day, I still feel very blessed and very lucky, and I wake up with that and go to bed with that in mind. But yeah, it's not me per se, you know, and even like professionally, like, you know, there's a small level of like almost embarrassment, you know, and I don't like share a lot with my coworkers, you know, like I got to take time off. I won't say a while. I'll just be like, yeah, can you cover for me? Like, don't worry about it, because it's like, you're on this TV show, but you know, a lot of them, but it's received well. I probably shouldn't be that way as much as I am, but again, I think ultimately I love new experiences, and you know, I get to meet people like you and everybody that I've met and open all these doors, and so for that, immensely grateful.
Yeah, I totally get that. And Dancing with the Stars, like we've alluded to it, but that's a tough show on a relationship. It's like, and you had Artem, who's like the best, and Nikki's the best, and like you honestly, you know, that's like probably the best case scenario for everything.
I was like,
but like it's just tough. It's just tough. So I understand that. I hear you. One thing I wanted to ask you though is judges were critical of not your technique, but you showing the emotion and the confidence, right? They obviously kept saying it. Do you feel that in your professional life? Did you feel that as the Bachelorette? Do you feel that's part of you, or were they wrong with that?
They're not wrong. The thing is, it's like, it's really hard when you come obviously on a show. It's a very, like, dancing is a very vulnerable thing, first of all, and I think people don't realize that. But like, if you have ever taken dance, you understand how much it's not just about technique. Which for me, I grew up, I had a cheerleading background, so like, my whole life I was trained based off of technique and technique alone. Like, when we are performing, we're performing with like this, like just singing the vowels and like the same exact facial expressions on repeat for 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Dance is different. It's coming literally from within. And obviously the first few weeks I was like, oh, okay, like they want to see more. They were pushing me to see more. But when like it got to the point where I was getting the consistent like comment the whole season, I was like, literally, what am I doing wrong? And like, I remember coming home, there would be nights where I was just so frustrated from like dance rehearsal, and I'm like, I'm not doing something right. Like, it was hard because it did take me back to like moments of like when I was like going through cheerleading training, but also just like who I am as a person and what people see me as. It's like, oh, like they see me as this person who's always put together and is perfectly poised. And I'm like, but that's not me. Like, obviously you've seen like the sides of me. My best friends have seen like the crazy sides of me, my family. So like, people know me, but it's like, I now have to like truly let the world in. Like, obviously, like The Bachelorette, it's an emotional journey and it's an emotional experience. Y'all saw that, but like, you're not seeing it in the way where it's like translated through dance. And I couldn't, like, it was really hard. It was really challenging for me. Like, I think I was more afraid of like, oh, like, I'm not doing it right. No one was like kind of really leading me. Like, Artem was like, I will never talk bad about Artem. Artem was a phenomenal dancer, phenomenal artist. Like, I was really grateful for him as my pro. But I do think like there was times where I was like, okay, like maybe we should not focus on technique. Like, this is the area that I really need help on. Like, let's just take one whole rehearsal doing this and this alone, not just a minute and 30 seconds working on it. So like, that's where I was getting frustrated, and like it was really tiring to kind of like go through that, and it became a lot on me. throughout the experience.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that happen behind closed doors back at home.
a lot. There's a lot.
Lot of
I'm
action.
telling you, I can talk for talk for hours about that. But it was hard. It was really hard.
For sure. So obviously career navigation ties to this podcast.
Yeah.
You finish Dancing with the Stars. You come in 4th place. You know, financially it's great. Professionally, it's great for you. Personally, there's challenges that you work through. But then you get approached to go on tour. I could be wrong, but I think you were like, you dabbled with tour. Like you did a touch and go.
I did.
What was the decision, especially when you're thinking like about career navigation, trajectory, all these things, went through your decision process?
I immediately asked all the girl pros. So I talked to Emma, Britt, Coco, literally talked to Jenna. I was like, do I need to do tour? And I literally told them my main concerns. I was like, obviously we just endured and actually survived Dancing with the Stars, our relationship. But I was obviously we were still fresh as a couple. We hadn't had time to really nurture our relationship. So I'm like, me going on tour for another 3 months is actually crazy. That's really crazy to leave him back at home. Obviously he could have came on the road with me, but then I'm just thinking, I just don't think, not saying that we weren't in the best place, because we were in the best place. If anybody could have done it, it would have been me and Dotun. But I was I just don't think that would be right. Selfishly speaking, I was I don't want to put you through that. And then also I was I'm just also not trying to do it for 3 months. So I literally told them, I was it's great for my career. They told me is you probably should never turn it down. But then I was okay, but is there a way I can just negotiate how long? They're absolutely. If you don't want to do it that long, then just tell them how long you want to do it. So I told them, I was I'm open to do it for a month or a month and some weeks. And so it ended up working out that only I think 3 celebrities were able to go. So she was first, she won. I was on the second leg of the tour, and then Harry finished the third part of the tour.
Actually, that works.
So it did work out. I was this is great. I don't have to do an extended time of this. They get the people that they want to see. So it really did work out.
Social media is a great place. Dancing with the Stars is a great place. Great team, great show, great everything. One thing I would say about social media and Dancing with the Stars, given the experience I have, I don't know, I think you would agree with this.
Yeah, come on.
Is that if you're going to do Dance with the Stars, or you're going to go on Dance with the Stars tour, or you're going to do anything social media in a relationship, you have to make sure that the foundation of your relationship is ironclad, rock solid
1000%.
To the core.
Yeah.
Because if there are some areas or paper cuts or cuts or there are some holes in that foundation, and you go into social media publicly, or you go into Dancing with Stars or Dance with Stars tour, it's going to get ugly. It's going to get ugly quick.
Yeah.
And that social media is great. Dance with Stars is great. It's just, I think it's a behind the scenes thing.
It is.
But it's also tough because it has a huge impact on career and money and all those other things.
Yeah.
So a lot of action there. Let me ask.
Were you dancing? You talking about?
No, my ex was on Dance with Stars, and then she went on tour.
Okay.
But I
you were with her while she was on.
What's that?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you know.
So I have compassion for the impact it has, both in all areas.
Yeah.
Did you guys stay together, live together while, or no?
It was though that situation was nuts because we were in LA. It was during COVID, and we had both of our dogs, and we lived in an apartment that was 1,500 square feet, maybe a little less than that. But the challenge is anytime you literally left the house, other than to walk the dogs, you had to get tested. Because it was 2020. So and then there were scares. There was one time we went to get a bite to eat, came back, and there was a false positive test, which was also the stress of that on top of the show that has an impact. So many moving parts.
No, thank you.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So you thought you would have been. I'm just kidding. All right. Talk to me about social media. It's a big part of a lot of people's business after they get off Bachelor Nation. 1 year, you've been out in the social media spotlight. Are you seeing the dollars? Are the brand deals coming in? Is it big? Is it life-changing? Talk to me about the business. You guys are laughing left and right. What do we got?
I'm just laughing because obviously Dotun literally just mentioned how bad he is on social media. This man avoids it truly like the plague. He hates getting on. Well, I don't want to say you hate it.
You gotta step it even for your fitness business. Give me some tips on nutrition.
You're telling me.
Tell me you were a 2-time All-American.
Yeah,
You're telling me, man.
I see every other Bachelor person, every damn
That's
marathon.
I know.
You're a 2-time collegiate All-American. Go put your times out there. What are we doing?
No, I
start bragging, Dot.
Honestly, I need someone an executive. You probably play a role. You probably do this for other people. But I need someone who can make, because I'm like analysis paralysis.
Yeah. That'll kill you on social media.
I did the same thing. You just got to fire it off, and it's been cool. I mean, I've had like a little bit of extra cash here and there from it. It's nothing like crazy. It's not like life changing, and it could be more if I put more effort into it. But yeah, it's also just been, as you know, like as a guy, you know, and especially, and you're not the lead, like my following was a 99% woman, you know, 1% guy. It's like so hard to try to connect. And unfortunately, and it's the same for her too. People just really, the most engagement is just things of me and her. And so trying to branch out into these things, it's like, I'm so nervous of like fucking it up, you know, because I don't want to do one thing and all of a sudden everyone leaves. Because it's so far away.
Or you also don't like, you know, something that I think people don't factor is when you're in a relationship, especially connected to The Bachelor, you also don't want to do something that'll screw up your partner's social media who's killing it out. So they're like, whatever. So like, that's another thing.
Super mindful.
But I think what you should do is worry about less about the onions and just keep doing your stuff. I think you should just keep like mix in, of course, your life, but then like all these nutrition facts and like all this stuff. Like there's so much to it, like running and everything. I don't know. I think there's there's something there. Let's get it going.
I know. And it can even be brief. I feel like like it doesn't have to require like a whole bunch.
No, it's just a little. You're just such a disciplined guy. Like you apply that to your social media because that's a little bit of work.
Yeah,
I know. We'll talk offline. I'll get them going. All right, I'll get you going. How about for you?
Yeah, for me, I will say I clearly haven't been working, so I'm
like it's good.
Yeah, it's been great. I can't lie. Like it really has been great. But I think the same thing that Dotun mentioned. Like it's just really fascinating to see too, like even for me, like being the Bachelorette and being like a woman, like the most like engagement we get off of our posts is like either, or for me, whenever I post with him, obviously, because yes, this is why people follow us and tuned in the first place. But then it's also like, for me, what I struggle with is like, and I hate that I'm just going to talk about it on here, but it's like, remember when I asked you, or when I like asked you like, oh, is this like an appropriate picture that I can post online? Like, and it's usually, obviously, Jason, you know, like a swimsuit picture or like some things like that. Yeah. Like those are the posts that like it's crazy to me because I'm like, oh, I'm here sharing like my skincare, things that are going to help you. And like, yes, people will tune in, but they don't really care. But it's like, all they care about is like me and dying or like a half naked picture online. And I'm like, this is insane. And I'm like, I just don't know if I can
the consumer base of America.
Right, I'm like, I don't know if I can go with the consistency of this. So for me, like that is like hard. I'm like, okay, like obviously you want to pull in the numbers, but then I'm like, no, that's just not me. So I'm not going to like put my like, make my grid something that's not who I am. It's hard, but you know, I make it work, and I have been, really, I feel like pretty successful in the brand deal department, but yeah, we would always love more. Okay. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, you're allowed to. Any advertisers out there, get them more. Let's go. You got to start posting more. I'm going to get on you about that. Please. All right, talk to me. Dance with the Stars, we already addressed it. You were on it. Dance with the Stars is coming up. Bachelor Nation. Who do you think would be a good fit for Dance with the Stars?
If we're talking leads, obviously.
Talking anybody. Who do you think? Who do you see?
Oh, anybody.
Who do you see? Not that like you're like, I think this person actually could be selected.
Yeah.
Charity's predictions.
Okay, obviously before the Golden thing happened, I was like, Gary would have, I think like it would have been really good and engaging because they love Barry from my season. They went crazy over him. But if we have to talk about like who we think, I think it's probably Joey.
Yeah.
We were like, I think Joey would do really good. And then my next prediction would probably be like Maria. She has a dance background, so she would do really good. I don't know, like, I don't know if Jen wants to do it. She probably does. Would she be good at it? Probably. Yeah. But I would have to rank it in that order.
Okay. So, there you go. All right. We'll see what happens. Yeah. No, I'm
sorry.
good.
Do you want to go? No, sorry, Jason.
Come on, get in there.
I'm good. Thank you. I'd take the paycheck, but I would do it, but they were not going to approach me. I'm like guy number 845 that they'll pick. All right. Anyway, I want to talk to you about this before we wrap here, the wedding planning. Right? Oh, yeah. So you guys have announced that you have a date.
Oh, Jesus.
Now, I just did some research. The average wedding cost is around $33,000, up from $29,000 last year. So prices are going up. How's the wedding planning going on like the finance? Talk to me about the like finance business side of it.
That's the conversation. It has been so, I think, to the point where I'm allowed to say this. No, it's crazy, but it's like, initially, like, yes, we like started wedding planning, but then it got to the point where now you have to like you have no choice but to start looking at numbers and factoring everything in. And like when you're starting meeting with these people, like obviously like there's things and vendors that are willing to help us, but still the cost of it is like still so expensive. And I think we were both just like, okay, like let's do what makes sense in our lives and where we're at for like the stages, which is like we're still projected, but like also this is us saying out loud, it's like if it gets bumped back a month or two, don't be mad at us, but we're doing like what's best. But it is a lot and it's overwhelming, and for me I get obviously very overwhelmed very easily, so I would like have my head set on like certain things that I want to accomplish for the month, but then like when I like look at it and I look at what it entails, I'm just like no, and then I put it off, which is a really bad thing. When it comes to wedding planning, it is.
You're putting it off, but also it's like we haven't had, like, people have to understand we've
been going like also
now
it's
is about the time
like,
where
a full-time job.
It is
just now it's like something you have to be consistent, and like we literally just since Dance with the Stars, the tour, and then since then we've been moving all over the place, traveling a ton. Like just now is when like things are settling down. I mean, we have obviously like CMA coming up, but like so it's also been difficult to be consistent enough to like plan and to have like the stability to do it. But yeah, those numbers are going to be disgusting. Obviously, it's like we're trying to do 2, and we're trying to do 1 in Nigeria. So it's we want to do it smart and like not rush it, because it's already going to be a nightmare. It doesn't need to be also like
and that's why I keep telling people, I'm like I don't like want it to get to the point where I'm like I dread having to because it's supposed to be the like exciting time in your life, and I'm like I don't want to do it right now, like, or I don't want to like deal with this right now, and like I don't want that to be my experience when
are you going to create like a joint? You're going to be like, all right, this is our budget, we're going to do what we can do under this, and the rest is history? Or Jerry's like, nope, not at all.
No budget.
No, I mean, I have to be
budget,
smart. We can't say no budget. That's actually crazy. No. There's things where I do have I feel like I am pretty frugal for a girl. Like when it comes.
Okay.
Not bad.
All right, that was good.
I was trying to explain, like I do feel I have like set things for.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, we aren't having this conversation.
Wait, I have a great transition to a segment I wanted to do, actually. We can wrap with this. So it's Talk Money to Me. I give a few questions that are not very invasive. They're like high-level fun questions that people can ask out on dates. They can ask on a date. You guys are engaged planning your wedding, so it should be easy to ask you guys this one. This would be a great segue to the first one.
Okay.
Dotun, you're going to go next. What is one thing that Charity overspends on, and you're just like, unless she's broke, she's going to keep overspending on this thing? What is that thing?
Please.
I know.
Like, be careful.
Here's the deal. It's more of quantity than it is like quality. Like they're clothes, although
so
you
clothes,
are
clothes
although
is the answer,
it's like cheap
he's
clothes,
gonna say I don't need
it's
them.
a lot of them, and and it's like a new thing, and like so I would say that's one of the ones.
Do you agree? Do you think that's something you overspend on? Unless you're broke, you'll always spend on that. Like, what's your answer to the one thing?
I think, well, to be fair, like I had this debate when we went on the couples trip with like Zach and Katie and Joey and Kelsey. I was like, when it comes to girls, we just have to like have more variety of outfits. Like I can't wear this, like he can get away with wearing this 80 times and no one's gonna know. Like if I like, it's just like a thing of like we have to have variety. So granted, I do have more clothes, and yes, I will continue to buy them.
I love it. Let's go. All right, so he nailed it though. He was right.
He was
Clothes is your answer. All right, you're in the hot seat. What's one thing that Dotun overspends on, but unless he's broke, he's gonna keep spending on it? One thing. What do you think it is?
Dotun honestly never overspends. This man is so great
It's gotta
at
be
like
one thing.
I will say food.
Okay, that's a good one.
Eating out.
Yeah. Do you agree?
Recently, just because we've just been on the move. Like before all this, I was really good with like cooking at home, but it's just become a lot more difficult.
Okay, I like it. All right, let's do another one. So you can answer this.
Okay.
What would you, if you had to define your relationship with money? So how would you define your relationship with money?
We're like mine or like together as a couple?
Like your no.
Oh, me.
Charity's relationship with the word money means what?
Okay. I'm wise with my money, but I can be a lot better when it comes to budgeting. Like, I feel like sometimes I'm like, oh, it's okay if I go, and that's like really bad.
Yeah.
Like if I go over, it's like, what's that girl math where I'm like, oh, I didn't spend this much in this category, so I can spend it more in here. Yeah. So, it can be a lot better. I really do need to be better at budgeting, but I am like, I will not spend unnecessary amounts of money for no reason. Like I can't bring myself to do it.
Gotcha.
I truly can't.
Okay, cool.
Fair.
What would you say your relationship is like? You approve of that?
That's fair. Yeah.
Please.
No, she's very sensible. Like even if it gets to a point, she can talk it out, and like she's not like, she's very sensible. Yeah, and just about everything, finances and beyond. So.
One thing that's good, I think, with talking about it is if you identify that clothes is your number one priority, then even though it's not your number one priority, a good thing to be like, all right, if it's spending on clothes, I'm just gonna, that's what makes her. But then like that's happiness, she understands. But then priority like 2, 3, and 4, that I always say, like, you have to know your person's number one priority so that you try not to judge it or like shame it. But then priority 2, 3, and 4, you might have to cut back a little bit. If you're gonna be nice about number one, you gotta be ready to get some shit for number 2, 3, and 4. And like writing that list with your partner, like a top 5 list, I think is really good. So then in your head, when you see clothes, just shut up. That makes her happy. But when you see 2, 3, and 4, you're like, okay, 8 boxes of clothes came up, and I saw number 5 on your list pop up left and right.
We need to do that.
All right, give that a shot.
We're gonna do it.
What would you say your if you had to define your relationship with money? What is your relationship with money like?
My relationship with money, it's kind of interesting. I don't know how to put it, but like, I've always kind of been. I mean, grew up like very poor, but like parents did really well off, so I understand how hard work equates to more money, and I think because of that, I have a mindset of like, I'm not, even though like I don't spend a lot, I also don't restrict myself, and I always say that like, as long as I don't know, for some reason I've always, as long as I'm spending it, I've always been able to make enough to match. So I kind of use money as like a motivation. Like if this type of lifestyle I want to live, what do I need to do in my own like
it's like a tool to get you to the next
life. And so that's kind of been really like what's worked for me. But I'll say the big thing that like I do spend on, is like experiences. I'm big on experiences. So like tangible things.
I'm the same.
I could care less. I really don't.
Big
but
on
like
experiences too.
Like so, I don't know if that answers the question.
It does.
But that's my relationship.
All right, we're gonna get into trading secrets in just a second. Before we do though, you had come to the States when you were 4, right? So when you said that you grew up very poor, what age? Tell me about that.
Yeah, parents came here on a visa, got really lucky, got chosen. And then had to live with my aunt in Fresno, California. That's where they were at. So we moved to Fresno, and that's how it became hometown for me. We just had to live with them for, I think, like a year, 2 years like that. And then eventually we kind of got kicked out. And, we're going to be put on the west side, which is a bad side of town. But my dad was like, no, we're not playing that. I'm not putting my kids in the bad side of town because it's cheaper. And so we got a place that was a little bit out of our range. But I just watched my parents. My dad literally worked for McDonald's, like literally McDonald's, 35-year-old, thick accent, barely speaks English, and work his way up to become a sheriff. My mom watched her become a nurse, an RN, and honestly, like really just put the family. Put all of us up in a huge way. So I grew up poor, and like so I remember all those things, and I watched them, like I said, work to be above average, above middle class. So that's
that's why I ask, because like when you understand that stuff, it makes sense why your relationship with money then is it's like a tool for your next means of lifestyle, and you want to keep moving that. And I do think like that's what's good. Like therapy actually connects a lot to money. You know what I mean? Like our instinctual habits and like why we work the way we do, a lot connects to like what we saw when we were younger. So I find it all fascinating. Last question I got for you before trading secret. You win $100,000 right now. It's going to rapid fire. You got 100,000, you got 100,000. It's right there. It's cash. You have to spend every single dollar, 24 hours.
Oh my God.
How are you spending it? Charity, go first.
Okay, I would. Oh my God, how would I spend it? Okay, obviously I'm going on a shopping spree.
Buy a lot of clothes.
Buy some clothes.
Yep.
I'm gonna give a fraction of it to my parents to let them like obviously use. My dad's retired, but my mom's not, so hopefully she'd be like, okay, yay, retire.
Okay.
I'm trying to think what else. I would put a down payment on a house because I want a house so bad. Like that's one of my goals for next year.
Okay.
I think
you're out of your
I'm like, I'm done.
You're 100. Go.
First thing that comes to mind is my parents. I don't know how that would happen, but I would give them a huge chunk of it. And then I'd probably give my little brother a huge chunk of it too, because he's into stocks. So I want to encourage him to go that route. So I'd probably create some TD account for him like that. And then the rest of it, honestly, like I'll keep a little bit just to have fun and like splurge it on something. Maybe buy some tickets to, some European country or something like that. and then the rest of it probably just go towards student loans.
I like it. That's great. The reason I ask that is because then you get to hear the way you guys think, and it makes you think, and then it makes you manifest. And then what's interesting though is both of you guys family, like giving to family. That's huge. That's amazing. All right. Well, this has been a great episode of Trading Secrets. We've gone through like every stop of your resume, which has been a whole lot of stops and more to come. Obviously, therapy again in August. So we'll have to have you guys back in a year from now and see how that journey goes. But you got to leave us one trading secret, something we couldn't learn from anyone else, not a professor or a TikTok tutorial or YouTube or a textbook, just from your experience. So one trading secret, life, money, personal recommendations. It could be literally anything. Who wants to go first?
Dotun, you started off.
Dotun,
Okay.
fire away.
You can start off.
Yeah, I'm like thinking.
Yikes. I mean, I guess I would have to like make this a two-parter, but like being grateful, right? And that comes from not being born here and coming here and always knowing what my life would have been like if we didn't win that visa, right? How much luck is involved with life, and how lucky everybody is. And then like something a little bit more tangible. What ties into it with me, in terms of being grateful, is meditate. That's been the single most important thing that I've personally done. You know, my dad used to say that, you know, anybody can take away when I was doing athletics. You can, you know, play sports, but he's like, you can get injured and that can be taken away. The one thing you always have until you don't is your mind. Yeah. And I'll leave everyone with this quote that I live by, and it's, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional.
Ooh,
and so
I like that.
It's all different things, but to me, it's all kind of ties into the big picture of life and never live inside of that. So
that is a tough act to follow, Miss Charity
like,
Lawson.
That
was a great trading secret, but give us something.
Where I'm at mentally, and when obviously we're talking about finances, and then me and Dotun just being a couple coming from reality TV, I would say like, do not hesitate or do not pull yourself away from having the hard conversations about anything, but especially like finances with your partner. I remember like just being grateful for Dotun, because when we first had it, I was like terrified out of my mind. I was like, where's this going to go? Like, is this it for us? But like, he just met me with so much grace and like compassion. And I think just our ability to communicate like on a sound level, like we're both just on the same page about a lot of things. It's like really important. But like, even if you don't find yourself with like that with your partner, like just be willing to get there or try to get there. And then also like, I guess tying into the second half of it is forgiveness over the small things, like forgiveness over things that typically like you're easy to jump into like maybe an argument about, but you realize, okay, like tomorrow this really won't matter, unless it will. Save yourself from it, let it kind of go off the shoulder. I
like that you practice what you preach too, because I think it's in a space where you were somewhere and then overnight it changes, and the dollars, the cameras, the lights, the action, it's sent to you, and you still were able to pull back and be like, this is more important than that, and prioritize. It is so hard to do. Yeah, it's so hard to do in this space.
Daily practice.
Yeah, and what you're suggesting, obviously, you're practicing, which is beautiful. So, Charity, thank you guys so much for being on this episode of Trade Secrets. Where can people find more of you guys, your social media, everything you have going on?
Instagram, Charity Lawson. Please follow this man.
Go follow Dotun.
This man has nutrition facts coming your way.
Yes, all the content.
At the end of this week.
Go follow him. It is coming. It is coming. Thank you guys so much for being on this episode of Trade Secrets.
Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.